And hello, we are live here at the Second Talk, and I am here with my friend Anne, and she is the best. And we are here to talk at the Second Talk. And if you haven't heard yet about the Second Talk, it is the talk your mama should have had to you about perimenopause and menopause, because most of our moms gave us a talk about what was going to happen when puberty hit, when those hormones,
Birds and the bees, right?
exactly, when our bodies started to change the first time. But they neglected to tell us what was going to happen when our bodies started to change the second time.
Yes.
So, this is our time to talk about that. And Anne and I are not afraid to be frank. Don't call me Frank.
So yes. So if you're afraid to hear or listen or in any of this, you may want to go ahead and hop on to some other place right now.
Right. But maybe you should listen if you're afraid to listen, because that's the whole point, is this shouldn't be scary stuff. But we're not going to hold back because it's real. It's happening. And yes, it might be hot in here, at least for us. So
We're having
today,
our own personal summers. As one
exactly.
of my friends put it recently. She's like, I understand you're having your own personal summer. I was like, oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Because that is one of the real things that happens, is that when your hormones start to change, and that's what they do, they change. It's not that they all die, it's that one gets a lot more active as one becomes inactive. And the truth is that I didn't even know I was having hot flashes. So if you didn't see last week when I was here with Christine, I did talk about that. I only thought that hot flashes were these huge things. These, like, we've all seen the television shows or the memes of like 10 to 20 degrees seeming, oh my God, I am dying in the moment and I will kill you if you get in the way of a freezer and me. But that wasn't my experience. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason that I was inspired to have this talk. To me, it was when when you're uncomfortable in a room because you feel like, someone should kick up the AC, like it's gotten 2 or 3 degrees too warm, and your clothes get a little itchy because they're inappropriate to the room. That's how I
You're
felt.
just uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable, and really, and I'm glad you brought up that point that you weren't even aware that this was a hot flash, quote unquote. And there is a scientific medical term for it. It's your vaso nerves, um,
Oh yes.
basically. Oh gosh, like help trying to regulate itself, right? And so, but for each woman, this experience is different. So I had kind of sneaking like hot flashes, like you said, right? But I have also full on, like, I've got to take a break and sit in like the coldest room in my house to let myself cool down.
Vasomotor symptoms.
Yes.
I looked it up.
Yes. So, I'm literally like sweating, and for a woman, we're supposed to be so prim and proper and not sweaty and all this stuff. It can be embarrassing,
Yes.
especially if you're out in public or if you are in a setting where you are in a professional setting, right? Because we're probably, where are we? We're on LinkedIn and people are like, how is this conversation on a professional network? Well, guess what? This affects us in every aspect of our lives,
Exactly.
and it needs to be talked about. So I am happy to talk to you about it, right? I've had several conversations about this via an article and other live streams. But this will be my first time talking about it on LinkedIn. Cheers, kudos to you, my friend, for doing that.
Well, thank you. And one of the reasons why I think that it's appropriate to LinkedIn as well is most of the people that I am networked with on LinkedIn are women in their 40s and 50s and plus.
Mm-hmm.
It is a real part of our lives. And one of the things that Christine and I spoke about with is it's part of health. This isn't something that's some murky ooh, you're just it's either in your head or it's something wacky that just happens to women that we should close our eyes to, and you girls just figure that out, and when
Mhm.
you're done being crazy for a little while, you can come back into the room. No, this is part of our health, and I've said it before, but I think it bears repeating. Most women understand what happens to men and their medical checkups and appointments. Like, we know what a prostate exam is,
Yeah.
but men do not. I won't say they do not choose to be educated about what happens. I don't think they get many opportunities, and I think that they are a little frightened by them.
Well, yes, and this is such a has been a quote unquote kind of taboo topic, right? So just like again, women's health, just like period health and all this stuff. It's part of women's health, and it's not a topic that is often spoken of. And even with our own mothers, as you mentioned it when you
Yes,
introduced this show, my mother did not have this talk with me to share that. Okay, in your late 30s, early 40s, expect this to happen. I
right.
was like, am I a teenager again?
Exactly. And
It just and not in a good way, you know what I mean? I'm like, I my hormones were changing, I was getting acne again on my face.
right.
It's going,
Who tells you that?
I am a 40-something-year-old woman. Why do I have acne on my face? Like as if I was in my teens again. And it's all of that hormonal shift and changes and these things, and it kind of it just sneaks up on you, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I am in perimenopause. And again, we are not medical professionals, right? These are just our own
This is
experiences.
just girlfriend talk about the realities of it, and normalizing the conversation is the goal of this show.
Well, here's something to understand too. Perimenopause um, can last for a decade, like years and years and years, and then you don't officially go into menopause until you are completely,
It,
done.
menopause literally means the stop of menses, menses being
Mhm.
menstrual period. It's not a fancy, crazy world. A lot of people think menopause is the process of it. No, it literally means when it's done. And
Yeah,
then that is the experience of menopause can extend for some time, but you're not in menopause until you have gone an entire year without a menstrual period.
exactly, exactly. And all that time before is perimenopause,
Right.
and that can last for a very long
Right.
time.
And it doesn't, not every part of it has to be terrible too. And
No.
there are a lot of things that uh, that you can do to offset some of uh, the experiences, and let's just say it's symptoms. Like some of it can make you feel like shite. And it's okay to say that and not feel bad of it. And there's some things that you may have emotions with, and everybody has experienced their fertility period, whether you had children or not, but the period in which you had eggs
Yeah,
that could be fertilized, which is when you had menstrual periods, differently. And so you may or may not mourn the ending of it. Personally, I was happy to be done with periods. I didn't like them, didn't want them. When they were done, I was like, like those the car things.
yeah, yes.
But not everyone feels that way. Some
Right,
people are
exactly.
moon
Everybody's
goddesses and they love the whole thing.
Everybody's does feel, I mean, obviously from the physical aspect of it, and that yes, who what woman is not going to be happy that they don't have to deal with that. But I think emotionally, I mean, I never had children, and I chose not to have children. That was a very intentional choice on my part. But it there was a twinge when it happened. I was like, okay, before it was my choice, and now I really kind of don't have a choice, right? But I didn't dwell in it because that was again my intentional choice from a very early age to now. But there is still there was that little twinge which did surprise me, but I think it was just because okay, the choice was taken away from me. Does that make sense? um
Absolutely. And
but
no,
yeah,
whenever there is something that stops being entirely your decision, there is a processing of it. Even if it's a confirmation of your decision, if it's no longer yours, it's kind of like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I want to have this discussion, is for that reason, is because that's real. That's another thing that is happening, is that you can say, even though I never intended to have children, when it was physically no longer a possibility, I gulped a bit. I was like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's over, that's done.
Yeah. So, and also I think it was just realizing that entering into a different stage of my life, an older stage, if you will, like in our when we were on Cammy's group the other day or yesterday in Cammy's virtual coffee for social media breakfast, I talked about I don't know if this is a midlife crisis kind of. I'm at a crossroads with my work right now, and who I want to work with as a marketing consultant. And Brittany Crossan said, no, it's a midlife awakening. And I went,
Isn't
oh,
that beautiful?
that's a great way to say that, right? To
Exactly.
reframe that. And I feel like that is the case for us too. And at this age, thinking about our mothers when they were in their mid 50s, it's a different generation. We're doing different things. Think about when we were younger and think, oh, 40s and 50s is so old, because I feel like kind of that generation took on that stereotype of, oh, it's so old, right? Think about
Yeah.
the Golden Girls. Weren't they supposed to be in their mid
They
late
were younger than we. When I learned how old the Golden Girls were, and I'm like, they were wearing their little caftans, and they were,
Yes, and they made them seem so old,
oh my
and like
gosh.
life was over. But I feel like for Gen X, I think Gen X and definitely the generations after us, we don't think that way.
If we
And
were in Miami now, 4 women living together, I mean, we would be like the Real Housewives of Miami at their ages. We would all, like, be wearing bikinis or whatever, and it just would be a
well, some people can get away with that, right? Like J Lo and Shakira on their
no,
Super
but
Bowl
still,
show. That
like,
was
I
amazing.
just I think it's not so much, I mean, it might not be like the hottie situation as much as just, like, the embracing of life. It would just be a completely different
It,
show.
it is. It is. Yeah.
It just is the concept that, oh, here's the thing, we would all be Blanche. It would just all be like, it's just the concept that
We would be, yes, all of us would be Blanche. None of we know. Sure, there's a Dorothy, right? Somebody who's kind of pragmatic, sarcastic. But
well, we all need a Dorothy in our life, right? I mean,
I'm
seriously.
Dorothy.
Yes, you are Dorothy.
I am for sure.
Actually, the truth is I'm a little bit the Betty, Betty White character. I can't remember her name, but
Um, but just thinking about that shift in mindset and
right,
attitude, and how women in our 50s, and we're not, we're not relegated to the retirement home or whatnot. And so there's definitely a shift in thinking and attitude as we age, and
exactly. I
it
agree
definitely has to do
completely.
with generationals. And I applaud when I see older people in general, right, who are out there, who are very active, who are still very conscientious about their health, working out, doing whatnot. I've seen a couple of, for example, there is a woman on Instagram. I think her handles Train with Joan, and she is such an inspiration. She is in her early 70s by now, I think. Older woman, gray hair, but she is
Good
in
have those with
such
her.
great shape. But her story can resonate with so many people because she's very transparent and very honest about her, and she shows like the before and after, right? She was, like many people, overweight and kind of just like not super happy. And her daughter happens to be a trainer, so she wanted a better, really to focus on her mom's health. She wanted her mom to be around a long time, not so much like, hey, you have to look good, mom, but I want
Right.
you to be healthy. I want you to be around. And so she started working out with her, and she got, inspired. She is truly an inspiration, I think, for people of any age, but especially for women who are older, thinking, oh, I can't do that, or I can't look like that. And she's phenomenal, right? She's not like this itty bitty skinny, supermodel or anything. She's a normal woman who looks healthy. She's got great muscle tone. I love it. I'm all like, oh, I want my back and my shoulders to look like that, right? So
Well,
yeah,
I
I
just started Pilates last month.
good. Good.
I got an opportunity as a local blogger to get to do it for
Oh,
3 months to
yay.
start and just share my journey, and I'm sticking with it because
Good.
I really, because it's all core work,
Yes.
and it's not for me about, oh, I'm gonna like none of this. I'm gonna be bikini ready next year or whatever. It was about I'm not strong anymore, and I used to be
Well,
strong.
yeah, having a good core helps your back, right? So if you've lower back pains, all these other things, it really helps. But you know what else will help? As we go through menopause or perimenopause, women tend to gain more weight around their waist.
Yes.
If you're focused, you're doing Pilates, you're lifting weights, that really helps. For me, I worked out hardcore with a trainer, and I love weights. The heavier, the better, right? And I need to find another trainer here in the Dallas area. And I think it really helped because I look back on my photos from 2019, 2020, and while I will never be, itty bitty, I was in good health and good shape, and working out like that really helped me to kind of keep that
And
belly fat gain back a little bit. Of course, we gained weight since then, but that's a whole other issue. But definitely focusing on your health, whether it's Pilates, it's walking, whatever. This is me. I'm an advocate for lifting weights because women think, oh, I can't lift weights. I'm going to look like the bodybuilders. Well, those bodybuilders do a whole lot more to get themselves to look like that, right? Supplements, all these things. It's not just lifting weights, but lifting weights actually keeps your metabolism running for longer than if you did something such as cardio. I've tested it out myself with my watch, my Garmin, and stuff to see how the calories keep going. And so I highly encourage women to get into it. You don't have to go heavy, even like a 10-pound dumbbell or whatever. I personally just love the challenge of going as heavy as I could.
well, I would check that out because I also heard that it's really good to build up extra muscle now in your 50s as you go in, because you and I are both listed as very susceptible to having weak bones at
Exactly. And yes, lifting weights helps with your bone health, right, as well. So there you go. Whether it's using the machines or working out with a trainer, I encourage every woman to do more weights. Get
God
that
is.
iron in.
And you know what? I will try it too, because one of the things I've learned with Pilates, and one of the reasons I'm planning on sticking with it, even when it starts coming out of my bank account, is because I enjoy focusing on form. I don't enjoy cardio. I don't. I've every time I've tried something that was cardio, I never stuck with it. I did enjoy yoga before. There's a lot of crossover between yoga and Pilates. Every time it's something cardio, I don't enjoy it. But when you do Pilates, there's a lot of breath work that
Yes.
does get the heart going, and that really is what cardio does, is it gets your heart and your pumping. So I'm getting some cardio with
Oh,
Pilates
absolutely.
without it being quote unquote cardio.
Exactly, and I've never been one of those. I don't like running, and kudos to the people who enjoy running. Right, it's I think it's different for everybody, and
When I was young, I could do some running. I have really long legs proportionate to my body. People used to call me Spider Girl because, like, I have this tiny torso and I have these big spider arms and legs comparatively. But that was when I was young. I'm 53. I don't want to run. I don't.
my knees don't want me to
It's
run.
sitting is if you want to set, like, if someone says, I damn you to hell, you know what hell is going to be for me? Spin class.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Because
I never got into spinning. The very first time a girlfriend and I tried spinning, it was at our gym, and this was ages ago when I was, oh gosh, I was in my early 30s, so over 20 years ago now. we went to the gym and we asked about the class, and we're like, is there a beginner class? What does that look like? And so they assured us you can go at your own pace,
Oh no,
whatever.
it's a lie. It's a
It
lie.
was because our instructor literally was, I mean, Richard Simmons, but on
They're like,
steroids. Like
you have to
he
keep
was,
up. You have
but
to
he
keep up.
was like, think of the soup Nazi, right? From the Seinfeld episode, no soup for you. He was like, no, you don't, you got to keep going. I mean, we had to leave the class probably 20 minutes in because we couldn't do it anymore. And we had trained for a marathon. We had done a marathon and we could not do this spin class. And
No,
we sat, both of us sat in the locker room at the gym for probably another 20 minutes just to like get to the point where we could stand up and walk out of there. And we were sore for days. And I
yes,
thought that's ridiculous. That's punishment. That's who enjoys that.
I know. And then it's like all, you do the standing part and all you want to do is sit, and then the chair is physically painful and you want to stand up. It's like that's why I'm
I thought about that. I got on that bike seat and I went, "How does Lance Armstrong do this?"
so yeah, like I have found that classes that focus on form are good. So I bet with
And
weightlifting.
that's a great way to put it. I didn't think of it like that because I enjoy yoga and I enjoy Pilates and I love weightlifting. And I think you have to focus on your form and you have to be very intentional to make sure that you are doing it correctly so you don't hurt yourself, but also really making that movement as effective and efficient as possible for your muscles. So that's a great way to think about it. I didn't realize
It's
it's
the
never dawned
closest
on me. That's why I enjoy those things because yeah, you have to focus on form.
it's the closest I can get to meditation. Like you know me, and anyone who's ever watched me on any video will can tell you, like I don't stop. I am like Julia Roberts in Eat, Pray, Love, where I'm like, okay, okay, time has surely passed. And like the sweat's dripping, and she looks over and it's been 1.5 minutes. Like I am the girl who thinks about not thinking. I'm not Zen. I wasn't built for Zen. But if I could focus on form, that's how I could quiet my mind.
Exactly. That's what helps time to pass by too. But talking about like, I know we were joking about our knees and things, but truly, as we've aged and that loss of or reduction of estrogen in our body causes all these other things that we didn't even think about, right? Like loss of collagen, and so that's for me, that's what really has affected my knees.
Yeah.
I started taking collagen supplements, and it's again for me, it feels like it has been helpful. So that I don't have that soreness. And again, this was not anything that I even dealt with even just 10 years ago in my mid 40s. And so now dealing with it now in my 50s, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I truly am falling apart, right?
Well, and
And
I
the brain fog and all the
right.
things that go with it.
Yes, yes. And again, talking totally just as two women supporting each other. But I find that taking D3 and B12 is helpful too, because those are things that just they don't replenish, I find, as easily when you're young, and they just help me. They both mental health and physical health.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, B12 is what keeps those red blood cells up and is going to be supportive of, your nerves and your legs and just things like that. Like I find that things that were like little problems when I was young are harder, like for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the
Also,
D3, that's we don't get out as much. You don't get that sunlight
you don't
as
get the
much.
sunlight, you don't get vitamin D naturally from
And
the
let's
sun,
be honest, we're better about the sunscreen now. You were supposed to do it when you were young. You didn't so much. Now we're slathering it on. So you need more of that D3.
yeah,
And it's good for your mental health too, again, because vitamin D is that part that gives you that boost. So I am a big
absolutely.
proponent of those. Again, not a medical professional.
Yeah,
Just
check with your obviously, check with
works
your
for me.
medical professional before you
Yeah,
start on any kind of
because I
supplement.
don't want anybody coming back at me saying
Right, I mean, and because if you're on some, if you're on different medications
right.
and
It's,
different things, I think,
you
so
know,
definitely check
but
with your
these are
medical
just things
professional.
that help
But
us
these
that
are,
work
yes,
here.
exactly. These are our experiences as women in our mid-50s going through perimenopause. There's can we talk about the fatigue and the exhaustion for a minute? I did
It's
not
real. It's real.
I had yeah, it truly is. I had never in my life felt so much fatigue, and it kind of wavered during the day, but mostly towards the later part of the day, like later afternoon.
Yes.
I would have to stop whatever I was doing and just take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. But there were times where I could barely keep my eyes open. And
I
people are like,
powered
oh, that's just that afternoon slump. I'm like, no, this is a whole different level. This fatigue, I've never felt this.
That's one of the main things I take the B12 for, but I also power nap. I do.
Do you? See, I'm not, oh, I hate naps. But you know what? My sister said one day, my sister's about 6 years younger than I. So she's, starting to go through some of that stuff. And she said, what really helped me with the fatigue when I was pregnant was the prenatal vitamins. And I went, you know
Oh,
what? You may be onto something.
that makes sense because
So I went and got
does it
prenatal
help?
vitamins and started taking them. It did help with my fatigue. I forget which brand it is now. I think it's what's the main vitamin brand? One a day or something like that, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
What a day
they
prenatal.
actually have a postnatal vitamin. So
Oh,
it's still the same stuff, but it's supposed to be after, you've had your child. So don't be afraid to go get some prenatals. Just make sure
it
you
kind of makes sense because
warn your
when you're
partner.
making a baby, there's a big drain on your resources. So,
Yeah, it
hey,
really helped me with my fatigue, and when I tell women that, they're like, "Oh, you know what? That makes a whole lot of sense."
see, this is why women have to talk to each other. See, that's exactly what I'm trying to create is like a circle of women talking together about, well, this worked for me and this worked because I just feel like we don't talk about it.
No, no, we don't. We don't talk about it enough, and again, I'm glad that programs like yours are bringing that, conversation to the
Just,
forefront.
yeah.
I recently was interviewed for a digital publication. I think it was called Flow. It's one of those brands that have women's health products, and it was solely focused on perimenopause and menopause. So happy to contribute to their conversation, and I'm here for it. I am here to have these conversations
Well, thank
and
you.
make sure that people are talking about it, that women are talking about it, and that they realize I'm not crazy. In fact, I just talked to, and I don't recall who it was, and I'm not going to share obviously their name, even if I did. They were like, I have all these symptoms, but I've gone and gotten checked out and done the blood test, and they're telling me I'm not in perimenopause. I'm like, well, we also have had a history of that as well, where medical professionals do not listen to us, are not running the right test, or maybe not thinking of, because a lot of it's our hormones, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show. And so there's, maybe different hormonal panels and things like that they can run tests on. And so if don't think that you're crazy, make sure that you are being heard,
Yeah.
with your medical professional. And if that medical professional absolutely refuses to try to help you, then don't be afraid to go to someone else, or find a doctor who specializes in working with women going through this change in their lives. I realize some of them may not be covered by insurance. It could be, out of pocket, which could be costly, but you're not crazy. And I feel like by having these conversations and having these discussions, it helps other women to feel empowered and understand, oh, okay, maybe there are things that I need to make sure are getting checked on. I'm not going crazy. This is not all in my head. And that, I feel like, historically is what society, culture, whatever, has made women feel like as they're going through the change.
Absolutely. And I'm going to let that be the last word because that was awesome. Thank you, my friend Anne. I just love you so much and would like to thank you guys. Anyone who watched live, especially thank you. But also for those who come back around and watched us. I think this is a really important talk.
Yeah, it
And
is. It is an important conversation. Have it with your friends. Have it with
yeah,
your medical professionals. Um,
and if you want to put any questions for future talks in the comments, it'll be really appreciated. And Anne, I would really love for you to come back another time and keep the
Absolutely.
conversation going. And thank you so much. And we'll say goodbye to our audience.
Have a great weekend, everyone. And
Yes,
Casey, thank you so much for
thank
having me
you.
on and really spearheading this conversation. It's a very important one. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.